Previously we've been working purely off the blueprints for the Mustang, so let's start to take a look at some of the reference material. So this one is probably one of the most useful images that I have that I just downloaded from Google, and really it's really useful to be able to see all of the intricate details of this vehicle. And you can see so much more than the blueprints, and in fact you start to realize that the blueprints are a little kind of deceptive in some ways, because you have all this additional information around the windshield, but this is simply a black rim that's sort of imprinted on the glass. We really are just interested in this outer square here, this outer rectangle. You can see some details about how the lines travel down the back of the car on the roof. We get a lot more information about the side of the vehicle, and we can really start to see what's happening here with this trim under here and these designs in the sides of the door. More importantly though, we're going to be looking in this video at the wheel wells and the windows. So we'll try and cut these in a bit more, get some more detail in there using the cut tool, and then later on we'll start to work more on the front and rear of the vehicle. Let's start then by cutting in some wheel arches and starting to refine these windows, and we'll see where we can go from there. So you'll notice that I've got my reference imagery off to the side here, and I'm sort of running out of real estate here, but this is really just to emphasize the importance of having your reference material up at all times, so you can always get a really good idea of what it is you're modeling. So as I'm starting to run out of space a little bit, I'm going to make sure that I'm on my edit poly. Actually, before I collapse this down, the way I've got this set up right now, you'll notice that my edge lines are actually showing up in orange, and that can be a little bit difficult to visualize. So the reason that's showing up is because I have show cage turned on by default, and normally I use that when I'm working with smoothed objects and using the NURM subdivision, and I'll change the colors of my cage. But for this example I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to bring up this menu here and hide my toolbar. I'll hide my command panel and probably start working with the graphite modeling tools here. So if we go into vertex mode, we'll start to look at how we can refine this wheel arch. And honestly, there's quite a few different ways you could go about doing this. I'll try and show you, one technique, but there's many different ways you could approach this. So the first thing that I really need to worry about is getting more detail in these edges here, and I think I'm going to add vertices in between each of these, probably a couple here and then down. So one way I could do that would be to use the cut tool and manually cut those in. Instead though, I think I'm going to make use of my polygon modeling tools, and I'm going to add in my edit tool. I'll add in a swift loop here, and you can see how this interactively updates, and it's a great way to make quick cuts around your object. If I show you in the 3D view, you can see how I can cut right through the model, or I can cut in this direction, depending on how you hover over these edges here. So let's cut maybe one here and one here, and I'll grab my move tool, which is just W, and start moving these into place, line these up, remembering to look at them not just from one view but from all views. Let's see, we're not quite in the middle with this, so we could probably tweak this a little bit, something like that. Bring this over. And then we'll check these in our top view. So let's see, that one looks good there, and this one looks good. Now we need to correct these because they started off as a straight line. We've added in these loops, so we need to make sure that they're correctly helping us form the contours of this shape. You could probably tweak these in a little bit. So never just insert too many loops or too much detail without actually going back and really refining and modifying these sections. We'll bring these ones over a bit and just keep the edge flow really nice and consistent. I'll check these in the top view, I think, so make a selection, these guys here. And those look pretty good, they're close enough for now. So we've got that nice arch starting to form here, and we've got this excess geometry here. What we'll probably want to do is we want to essentially bring this shape out and in, and I'm probably going to want all of these edges facing in to the center point, almost where the wheel is there. So I'll probably start to cut in this direction and then start merging things together. So for a good center point, we could really think about this shape that moves down the vehicle here, and probably this outer portion. So we could think about adding in another swift loop in this direction, probably here. And again, use my move tool. We'll start to clean up these points. Something... Actually, let's move this up. I'm going to change my mind there, actually. We'll do a swift loop on the inside one. I think that'll line up better with this outer portion of the arch. And again, just start making sure that everything lines up. Check your selections in different views. Remember, this is one of the wider parts of the model, but not the widest. So we'll probably leave it there for now. Just make some adjustments to these. That one there is going to form nicely on that seam with the door. And this will eventually start working on this arch here. So I won't go too much further back at this point. I'll start working on that later when I get to that arch, and then we'll clean this up. So for now, let's come back to this one and start looking. This is a little confusing here, so you can see that this arch comes down to where the indicator light is there. So we'll kind of move that there. And then we'll check that width here, which is going to be out a little bit. I would say roughly there. So we've got a lot of work to do, but we're starting to get there. Now remember I said that all of these are eventually going to come in, so I could merge these together. I'll probably just do a quick, let's see, target weld. We'll go from this one to this one, this one to this one, and bring these together as well. So at this point, we can line this up roughly in the center. Around there, and we'll check to see how far out to make this. We can adjust that later. And what I'd probably be inclined to do at this point would be to start using my cut tool, and then I'll just cut out probably to here, and we could probably fit another one of these in here. Let's see what this looks like if we bring this down. Change the spacing of these a little bit. This is kind of a battle between keeping these evenly spaced and yet matching up with these seams in the bodywork as well. I think for now I'm going to bring this down to here and try and concentrate on... We could probably bring this one... Yeah, let's actually keep with our original game plan. And then we'll cut out to here. And then I'll probably take this right out to the front. I'll use that geometry later, because there's a lot of detail around here that we're going to need to play around with. So again, I'm going to double check each of these in this view. This one's good. These ones need to come out a little bit. So this is really just a question of constantly refining these vertices. It's a little fiddly, but we'll get there. So let's cut this guy out here to here. And then we can probably put another one in here. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go with this as of this moment. So I think I'm going to leave that there for now. And just bring this out. And then try and match this up in one of these views. Probably going to be one of these slightly higher ones. Let's check our 3D view. You can start to see where things are going a little bit awry. Bring this one back in a bit. As long as you're trying to follow some consistent lines and checking all of your views, you should be okay. This one's coming in. I can probably bring this down a bit. I'm just trying to keep these angles even of the way these move into the center of the wheel. Bring this one over here. So what I'll do is I'll keep on working on this. I'm going to add in a few more of these here, and then we'll come back and look at the next stage. So I've added in a few more of these edges here, and I think what I'll probably do now is just grab my cut tool, and I'm just going to start to work on the interior of this first outer edge. So probably here, and I'm going to follow the edge flow right down to the lower section of the car. And these can be tweaked later. So for now, I'll just try and get them as close as I can. Something like that. You can go in, and in vertex mode, just clean these up a little bit if we need to. For now, though, I think those will be close enough. We can tweak them later. And then what I'll likely do at this point is try and match where this comes out to this other section here, how far out this comes. So what I'll probably want to do is actually get these so that they're planar to begin with, so that they're all flat, because I'm willing to bet that if I select all of these, I'm not sure where that one came from, I'll probably get rid of this guy. Remove. Okay. This guy too. Okay, so from the top view you can see how this is very, very haphazard. If we use one of our lines here, you can see if we align it in Y, we can make it planar essentially, so you get a nice flat line to begin working with. And it's not perfect, but it's a good starting point. So you can bring this out. This is going to be our top edge here, this guy here, and then we can start to align the others accordingly. And just gradually removing from the selection the ones that I'm happy with. And then this is kind of guesswork at that point. We'll probably tweak this in the front view actually. Okay, so you can see how that sort of made light work of that area there, and these ones still need some adjusting. I'll have to figure those out shortly. But that gives us a good starting point. From that point, what I could probably do is come in and start cutting in the next loop, which will be the main wheel well itself, the actual edge, this edge here. And we'll take a look at that. That'll be okay to begin with. And we can start thinking about the inside of this now. And there's a few different ways we could do this, but I think I'm going to take the quick and easy route and just really pull this in, I think. So I think if we probably do an extrude on these front faces here. And let's see, polygons, extrude. We'll bring this in, something like that. And I'll probably just delete these guys here. So now we have that sort of inner section of the wheel. And to be honest with you, right now, I would probably just delete these out. Just simplify it so you've got less lines to look at as you work on this. So that's the start to our wheel well, and we'll start to refine this a little bit more. Before I get too involved in that though, I think I'm going to take some time to repeat the exact same actions that I did on this front wheel, and I'll do those on the rear wheel so that then we have something to play with and we can work between the two. After a little bit of extra work then, I've actually completed the rear wheel wells, and you can see I'm using a different reference image here to try and get the best view and see where those highlights are coming in and exactly what's going on there. So if we look at this a little bit closer, you can see that I've tried to match the same detail as the previous wheel well, the same number of divisions here, and I use exactly the same technique that I used before, and just want to be extra careful to make sure that you're bringing everything out to the edge so you don't have any five-sided polys in here. Now I ran into a little bit of an issue up here where you can see the top of the wheel well actually touches that line that moves down our car, that nice sharp edge through there. So temporarily for now what I've done is I've put that as a try on each side, and we'll kind of see how that pans out and go from there. But you can see that I've tried to keep that lip, that flat edge on the front consistent, and if we come to the top view, you can see that I'm trying to follow the shape of that wheel well there, that arch, from all angles. So now that we have two of these wheel arches, we can start to work between them, and we can start to consider what's happening here with this detail. If I move this image down here, you can see these edges that come through here, these lips at the lip at the bottom, and we can start to join those up now and start to define some of these lines. So we have to pay attention to what exactly is happening with this sort of swoop here. Now it's not actually that visible, in fact I don't see it at all here. It's probably a slightly different model, so I'm probably going to switch to a different reference image here and see if I can figure out what's going on there. But in the blueprints you can see that that lip there goes straight to the wheel arch, and here we've got that little cutout there. So be ready for little discrepancies like that, and try and find sort of a nice intermediate workaround. This is kind of a nice image because you can see a really clear view of that side. So what I think I'll do is actually try and cut in this edge that I can't see on my blueprints, and I'll notice that it's actually coming down in pretty close to the angle of that rear window. So I might use this line that I've got down here that's already sort of prepping that, and I'll continue this down and then bring it around. Let's see if we can figure out how to do that. So let's come to a cut tool here, and let's see, cut from here roughly down to, I'd say it's start there, And then of course we're going to need to have that lower portion come out there. So we need to cut that across the length of the vehicle. So let's start, say, this guy here. I'm just going to cut down that line. Something like that. Now again, I've created some tries there, so that's not ideal, but we'll see if we can fix that later. Let's actually start to create that edge there. Doesn't quite come to the door, sort of comes to here. So let's bring this in. Let's take a look at the front of the car, see what's happening here. It joins right up with the wheel arch. So if we look at this lower edge here, this needs to be flush with our flat rim around the arch on the front, and at the back roughly the same thing, sort of flush with that lower portion, and it only actually insets here above that highlighted edge. So let's see if we can figure that out. I'll grab these upper ridges here and let's see how that's looking in the 3D view. Okay, so I've not got that edge coming in there, so I'm going to need to bear that in mind. Figure out the best way to do that. For now, I think I'll just grab it, and I'm just going to sort of probably do this by eye, because again, we can't see that edge. It's below the widest point of the vehicle, and I would say that our front and rear views aren't going to be much help either. So let's bring this in. I might just exaggerate it a bit to begin with, and then we can just always refine it, hone it back later. Now you can see it's a little bigger at the back, and I can't tell if it goes in more or if it just comes up higher. So for now, let's leave it like that. Let's just do a check. Alt-X, get out of X-ray mode. Come back in, Alt-X. Okay, keeping an eye on that reference image. Again, this isn't going to be the tidiest way to do it, but we'll figure out how to clean up those tries later. And I'll just come in here. Something like that. And we need to form that nice little swoop there. I'll cut this in here for now. Probably cut this down here too, just to give ourselves something to work with. Let's try and form more of a curve there. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to, let's see, we'll do a target weld, just bring this back here. That makes a bit more sense. Okay, so we have a five-sided poly here. We need to clean this up. We could try a number of different things. What I might like to do is just add in another division in here, and you can see what that's going to do is give me 4 on either side, and I can use that extra detail to my advantage, just to help to create an even finer curve there. I don't want to get too detailed though, that's my only concern, at least not too early on. Okay, let's check it in the 3D view. I'd say that's probably good to start. Okay, so we have a starting point there. And what I'm noticing here, I've got 2 tries. I'll have to clean those up later. by probably cutting in there and figuring out the best course of action there. Let's come down to the front and see what's happening with this arch here. And I'll probably do that in my perspective view. And just try and gauge that by eye. Let's bring that in. Now this might upset the top view a little bit, but you got to go with what ultimately looks best rather than maybe what fits the blueprints most closely. So later on what I can do is start tidying these up and just doing all of the fiddly work, but for now we've got that cut edge down there. Let's take a quick look at the rest of these down here. So if I look at my reference image, it's pretty smooth actually. That line is very subtle. So what I'll do is I'm just gonna cut in from here to here and to here. And it looks like we've got kind of a complex lip down here. So for the time being, I'm going to try my best to simplify that. And I think what I'll do is just take the easier route and just start with one and then add more in later. So what does that look like at the front? Kind of cuts in and up to here. In fact, it cuts to here. So let's cut this up here to here, and then we'll figure that out. Well, you know, before I do that, I think what I'll do is I'll just cut in the second line pretty low to the other one, to here, here, and probably out to here. And now what I can do is I can grab the top row right to the back, and we'll just bring those in. Start that lip going there. Yeah, it looks like this comes in quite a bit under here. See what's happening at the back. Constantly checking these reference images, otherwise you're just guessing and more likely to make mistakes. So it's rough, but it's a start. We've joined up between the two there. What I think I'll do now, between this video and the next video, is actually start to clean up some of these lines. So I'm going to clean up this work under here. I'm going to probably do another cut down here to make my flow a little more even. You can see it's quite dense here and very loose here. It's need more detail. And I'll see if I can clean up some of this as well. But that's a start on getting those wheel wells cut in and then joining between the two.